Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be looking at former President Trump's ability to outperform polling data and show where that would land him in the 2024 presidential election. Now, before we get started with the video, please hit that like button, subscribe, make sure to hit the post bell, and make sure to follow the Twitter and join the Discord in the description down below. And let's get right into this. And so pretty much, guys, the first state on the map is going to be the state of Alabama, which currently has Trump up by 20 points as of right now. He ended up winning the state in 2020 by about 25 points. You could see that in 2020, as of right now, Trump led by 19.5 percentage points in the aggregate on election day, which was a 6-point miss. So you could say that as of right now, Donald Trump is expected to win the state of Alabama by 26 points on the national level. This is a pretty Republican state and has trended away from Democrats ever since the mid-60s and 70s and has become a rock-solid Republican state as of right now. The next state we're going to be looking at is the complicated state of Alaska, which has Donald Trump up by 12 points in 2020. The aggregate on election day had Trump up by 7.7 percentage points on average, and the result was a 10-point victory for the former president. And so if you were to look at the latest poll out of Data for Progress, that has Trump up by 12, and that is a 3-point miss from 2020 to the actual result. And so that would put Alaska in the firm Trump column as of right now. The next state we're going to be looking at is the state of Arizona, the first crucial swing state, and we can see the latest poll out of the state with third-party voters included has Trump up by 5 points, with third parties, and only 4 points without third parties. For the sake of this video, we're going to be looking at the two-way race to simplify the polling data. And so Trump is up by 4 points as of right now. In 2020, the aggregate had him down by about 2.6 percentage points, and he lost by a tilt margin in 2020, losing by 0.31 percentage points. And that put the state at a 2-point difference in the polling error versus the actual result. And that puts the state at a +6 victory for the former president, giving him the state by a likely margin. Going on to the next state here, Arkansas is a 32-point victory for the former president. We can see here right now a 23-point lead in 2020, and the actual result was a 27-point win. That basically puts the state in the safe Republican column. The next state we're going to be looking at is the state of California, where Biden was up by 29.2 percentage points on average and actually matched that exact margin in 2020. So polling according to 538 was pretty spot on. The latest poll has Biden up by 23 points, and so you could say that that margin would probably be around where it's going to be next cycle. The next state we're going to be looking at is the state of Colorado. In the latest poll has Biden up by 10 points, and if we look at the polling aggregate, it had Biden up by 12.5%, and he ended up winning the state by a point higher than that. So that would put Colorado in the 11-point category for the incumbent president. The next state we're going to be looking at is Connecticut, which as of right now actually has a new poll out of the state ever since October 19th, and that has a +9 advantage for Biden. And if we look at the aggregate in 2020, Biden was up in the state by 26 points, and he only ended up winning the state by 20 points. And so if you apply a 9-point margin to a 6 percentage point error, that actually puts the state of Connecticut at a lean margin for the incumbent president. This is usually a deep blue Democratic state. However, based off of current polling and previous polling errors, it may be closer than expected this cycle. If we go to the state of Delaware, we can see Biden was leading here by 24 points. There is no new polling data out of 2024, but based out of previous results and the estimates from the other states, we are going to be putting the state in the likely Democratic column. The next state we're going to be looking at is the District of Columbia, which has no new polling, but based out of the last polling as well as the actual result, we are going to leave this in the safe Democratic column. I expect Biden to get in the high 70s to low 80s in the percentage margin in the District of Columbia. The next state we're going to be looking at is Florida, where Biden held a 2.5 percentage point lead in the polls, whereas Trump ended up winning it by 3.4, which is a 5-point miss in the left's direction. The latest poll has Trump up by 8 points with third parties included. However, the last poll from Emerson College, just in a head-to-head matchup, had Trump up by 13. And so if you were to apply that polling miss, that would give Donald Trump an 18-point win in the state as of right now. He would more than likely end up winning a lot of the southern and flipping back some left trending northern counties as well, performing very similarly to Ron DeSantis in the state in 2022, where he won his re-election bid by almost 20 points in the state. The next state we're going to be looking at is the state of Georgia, which according to Echelon Insights has Trump up by 10 percentage points. If we were to look at the last margin, Biden won that state by a tilt margin. And if we look at the polling aggregate in 2020, Biden was up by 1.2. And in the last election, it was 0.2%. So that is a point miss. And that puts the state of Georgia in an 11-point category of victory for the former president, basically making the state going back to its 2008 preference. Now, the next state we're going to be looking at is Hawaii, which has no new polling data, but based out of current polling from 2020 and previous results, we are going to be putting it in the safe Democratic column. I expect Biden to perform in the low to mid 20s in the percentage in the state, at least in his vote lead in the state. The next state we're going to be looking at is the state of Idaho, which had an 18-point lead for Trump in the aggregate. It ended up being a 30-point win, so that is about a 12-point miss. The latest polling has Trump up by 29 points, and you could say that puts the state above a 40-point victory for the former president as of right now. In the state of Illinois, Biden is up by 10 points. If we look at polling, Biden was up by 16. He ended up winning the state by 17 points, so that is a point shift in Republicans' favor. And so that actually puts the state at an 11-point victory as of right now, making the state equal in voting pattern to Colorado and Illinois, which is pretty interesting. They are both now just as blue as each other, whereas before Illinois used to be significantly more Democratic than the state of Colorado. And so the next day we're going to be looking at is Indiana, where Trump had a 10-point lead in the polls. Currently, he ended up winning the state by 16 points. And if we look at 2024, Trump has a 21-point lead from March 2nd, I believe, of either probably maybe this year, I'd say. And so because of that, I am going to be putting it in the safe column for the former president. In the state of Iowa, Trump was up by 15 percentage points in a survey. And if we look at the polling data in 2020, you will see that Trump is greatly underestimated in the state by about 7 percentage points, with this being a very left-trending state. And so because there was such a big miss in this state, Donald Trump is going to be winning the state by about 23 points according to this methodology, which would be a massive victory for Republicans as a whole. And more than likely, Republicans would be winning all of the House districts in the state, including the very deep Democratic one. Now, for the next state, Kansas is a safe Republican state. As of recent, Trump is up by 16 points according to Emerson College from their last poll. In the polling aggregate in 2020, Trump led by 13 points. He ended up winning by 14, and that puts the state in the safe Republican column. Now, as we keep going here, you're going to see Kentucky was a 15-point lead for Trump. He ended up winning by 25, a 10-point miss in polling data. And we can see that Trump has a 28-point lead. And so based off this methodology, Trump would be winning the state by 38 points. Louisiana is a 15-point lead for Trump. And if we look at the aggregate in 2020, he was leading it by 20 points, and the actual result in the election was an 18-point margin of victory. So it actually overestimated Trump looking at this. And so based off this methodology, that would actually put the state of Louisiana in the likely Republican column. It would actually put it at a 13-point victory as of right now, which is a very, very interesting characterization. And if we kept going as of right now, the state of Maine currently has Trump up by 6 points, including the 1st district and 2nd district as well. If you look at the polling aggregate, Biden was ahead by 13. He ended up winning the state by 9 points. So that is a 4-point shift in favor of the left. And so based off that methodology, Trump would actually be winning the state of Maine by 10 percentage points, and that would more than likely put Maine's first in the lean Democratic column. The next state we're going to be looking at is the state of Maryland, which actually only has Biden up by 23 points according to a two-way race survey as of right now. And if we look at the polling aggregate, it had Biden up by 31 points. He ended up winning it by 33, and so that leaves the state in the safe Democratic column. There is a big shakeup in the Senate race here, and that may actually affect some of the down ballot races in Maryland. However, I don't believe it's going to affect the presidential race as a whole. The next state we're going to be looking at is the state of Massachusetts, which has a 30.8 lead for Biden in the state in 2020. New polling suggests that he's only winning it by about 25 points. And if we look at this margin in 2020, he only won it by 33 points. So that is a 2-point shift in favor of Biden. And so as of right now, according to this methodology, Biden would be winning Massachusetts by 22 points as of right now. Going to the next state, we can see the state of Michigan. Trump is up by 6 points as of right now in the state. And if we keep looking at this, you'll see at the aggregate from last time, Biden was up by 7.9. He ended up winning the state by 2.8. That is a 5-point miss in polling. And so that would actually put the state at R plus 11, which is a crazy margin for the state of Michigan. It is basically as red as Louisiana and Georgia in this matchup. If we keep progressing, you can see the state of Minnesota is a 2-point lead for Biden in the latest poll. And we could see the state had a 9.2 lead for him here. And we can see that he only ended up winning it by 7.1. So applying the polling miss methodology, this would actually make Minnesota a tilt Republican state as of right now, which would be a crucial flip and very surprising flip for the former president in 2024. It would be the first time a Republican has won the state since 1972, when Richard Nixon won re-election and was able to win the state by a couple of points. Now, the next state we're going to be looking at is the state of Mississippi. Trump up by 18 points. We can see here in the aggregate, he led by 15. He ended up winning by 16. So a point overestimation for Biden. That puts the state of Mississippi in the safe Republican column for Donald Trump. Looking at the state of Missouri, we can see that Trump is ahead by 18 percentage points in 2020. He led only by 8 points in the aggregate and ended up being a 15-point win. So that is about a 7-point miss in the polling. So that puts the state in the safe Republican column for Donald J. Trump. The next state is the state of Montana, where Trump has about a 21-point lead. And you can see that in 2020, he only led the aggregate by 4.4. He ended up winning by 16, and that is a 12-point miss. So based off of that, Trump would be winning Montana by about 30 points, which would basically crush Jon Tester's hopes of winning the Senate altogether. More than likely, he would probably be winning the Senate race by over 15 points if Trump were really winning the state by 33 to 35 percentage points. Looking at the next state in Nebraska, Biden actually led the aggregate in the state at large by 3.8%. And in the latest poll, Trump was ahead by 18 points. And that basically, if you look at this, Trump won by 19. So that is about a 23-point miss in polling, which is very, very interesting. And that would put the state in like the high 30s in margin. And based off of that, I would characterize Nebraska as a likely margin of victory in this outcome. If we keep looking in the state of Nevada, Trump is up by 7 according to the latest poll. If we go to the aggregate, Biden was ahead by 5.3. He only won the state by 2.4, a 3-point direction in favor of Democrats. That would put the state of Nevada at a 10-point win for the former president, putting him at 177 electoral college votes. As we keep going in this video, we can see that Biden is up by about 7 points on the former president according to the latest poll. And you can see that in the aggregate here, he led by about 11. He ended up winning the state by 7. So that is a 4-point miss in polling. That would put the state of New Hampshire as a lean margin for the incumbent president. If we look at the next state, New Jersey, there is a new poll out of the state, which only has Biden up by 6 in a head-to-head matchup. And here, Biden actually led the aggregate here by 20. And if you look at this, he only ended up winning the state by 15. And so that would actually put the state at just above a point victory for the incumbent president, which would put the race extremely close in the state of New Jersey. If we kept going and looked at some more polling data, New Mexico had an 11-point lead for Biden. He ended up winning it by 10.8, so that is a point favor for Biden in polling. Trump is up by 8 points here, and that would put the state as a 7-point victory for the incumbent president. If we were to keep going to the state of New York, in the latest poll, Biden is up by 12 points. And if we look at the aggregate here, Biden led by about 29 points here. The real margin was 23, so that is over a 6-point miss in polling data. And so if you were to apply that here, Biden would only be up in the state of New York by about 6 points as of right now, being a lot closer than the state of Illinois, showing that New York would shift to the left, possibly due to African American trends, Hispanic trends, as well as Trump's brewing indictments in the state, which may backfire on Democrats on the national and state level. And the next state we're going to be looking at is the state of North Carolina, where Biden had a 1.8 percentage lead in the aggregate. Trump ended up winning by 1.3% as of right now. And we can see that in 2020, his latest lead in the state is a 3-point lead, and the polling is about a 3-point miss. So that puts the state of North Carolina as a likely margin of victory for the former president. If we kept going to North Dakota, Trump is leading by 37 points. If you look at 2020, he led by 17. He won by 33. That puts the state in about almost the 50s in terms of percentage victory in the state as a whole. The next state is the state of Ohio, which Trump only led by a tilt margin in the polling. He won by about 8 points, so that is about an 8-point miss in the aggregate. And if we look at the latest poll, Trump's ahead by 11 according to FAU, and that would put the state as a 19-point victory for the former president in 2024, which would be a stunning victory and would mark the state as a solidly Republican state and would actually vote to the right of Florida once again. Now, if we were to go to the state of Oklahoma, Trump is up by 28 points. Here, he was up by 23. He ended up winning the state by 33, so that puts the state in the safe Republican column. Trump is about to eclipse 270 once we approach the state of Texas in this polling scenario. Now, once we get to Oregon, we'll see Biden led the aggregate by 21 points. He won the state by 16, a 5-point overestimation in his direction. Biden is ahead by 15 in the latest poll, and so that puts the state at a 5-point victory as of right now. If we kept going to Pennsylvania, we can see Trump's latest lead is a 4-point lead according to Echelon Insights from March 12th to the 19th. And if we look at the victory in 2020, he won by 1.2%. And if we look at the aggregate here, Biden was up by 4.7. So that is a 3-point overestimation for Biden. And that puts the state of Pennsylvania in the likely Republican column. However, if you've noticed, Michigan is an 11-point win, and that actually makes Michigan more Republican than Pennsylvania in this hypothetical scenario. If we keep going, we'll see that the next state is Rhode Island, where Biden enjoys a 17-point lead in the state. In 2020, he led the average by 30, and he only won by 20, and so that is a 10-point overestimation in his direction. And so that would put the state as a 7-point victory only for Biden as of right now. If we were to keep going to the next state, South Carolina, Trump is up by 14. Trump led the aggregate by 7. He ended up winning the state by 11 points, almost a 5-point overestimation for Biden. And so that would put the state comfortably in Trump's safe column. The next state we're going to be looking at is South Dakota, where Trump enjoyed a 15-point lead in 2020. However, if you looked at the results, he ended up winning by 26, so that is an 11-point underestimation for Trump. And you can see he's up by 29 points, so that would put the state at a 40-point margin for the former president. Now, if we were to go to the state of Tennessee, Trump is up by 29 points in a head-to-head matchup from March 15th to the 2nd. And we can see here that Trump ended up winning it by 23 points in 2020. He enjoyed a 13-point lead, so that's a 10-point underestimation for Trump. And so that puts the state as a 39% margin of victory for the former president. He is about to eclipse 300 electoral votes once Texas comes into the picture. The latest poll has Trump up by 9 points from April 4th to the 6th. And we can see that in 2020, he led the aggregate by 1 point. He ended up winning the state by 5.6. That is about a 5-point, almost a 5-point overestimation in polling. And so if we look at the latest poll, he's up by 9 points, and that would put the state as a 14-point margin in 2020. And we are about to approach the final states of the 2024 presidential election in alphabetical order. The next state is Utah, where Trump enjoyed an 8-point lead from February 2nd to March 3, which suggests that the state may be closer than previous cycles as of right now. In 2020, he enjoyed a 9.8 percentage point lead. He ended up winning by 20, so that is about an 11-point underestimation for the former president, and that would put the state in the safe Republican column as of right now. If we were to go to the next state, Vermont, we could see Biden enjoys a 31-point lead. And if we look here, Biden was leading by 38, and in the last election, he ended up winning by 35, so that is a 3-point overestimation for him. And so he's winning the state by about 28 points in 2024. If we look at the next state, which is the state of Virginia, Biden's ahead by 6 according to the latest poll. However, Biden was ahead by 11 points here. He was down. He won by 10.1, which is almost a 2-point overestimation for Biden. And he's leading the state by about 6 points. And so that drops the margin in Virginia right below the likely category. If we were to go to the next state, which is Washington, Biden's ahead by 11 points. According to the latest poll, he's up by 23 in 2020, won by 19, 4-point overestimation in Biden's column. And so that would put the state as a 7-point victory as of right now, making Washington and Oregon practically the same margin for this election. If we were to go to West Virginia, Trump is up by 37 points. He led the aggregate by 28 points. He ended up enjoying a 38-point victory, so that is a 10-point underestimation for the former president. And so that would put Trump at a 47-point win in the state of West Virginia. The last two states on the map will certainly go Republican based out of the results right now. Wisconsin, a 1-point lead for Biden in the latest poll. However, Wisconsin tends to have one of the worst polling misses in history. Biden led the average by 8.4% in 2020. Biden only won it by a till margin. That is an 8-point miss, and that puts the state as a 7-point victory for the former president, which actually makes Wisconsin and Pennsylvania vote in line with each other, while Michigan is an 11-point win. This may be because of Dearborn and other places that are affected by the Israel-Palestine conflict really turn out just dipping for the incumbent president as of right now. If we look at the last state, which is Wyoming, we can see he enjoyed a 31-point lead in the aggregate. He ended up winning by 43, 12-point underestimation for him there. And he's leading by 53. So that would put the state at a 65+ percentage margin for him right now. And so looking at the final result, we can see if Trump outperforms the polling, Trump ends up winning the Electoral College 325 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 213 electoral votes, winning all of the swing states by likely margins, making New Jersey, Connecticut, and New Hampshire competitive, New York somewhat competitive, and picking up the states of Minnesota and Alaska, as well as, not Alaska, Maine, and Nevada from the 2016 election. And if you guys did enjoy the video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, make sure to hit the post bell notification button, and make sure to follow the Twitter and join the Discord in the description down below. and I hope to see you guys very, very soon.